The first time I heard my daughter-in-law say I had dementia, she didn't whisper it. She said it clearly, calmly, as if it were already a fact everyone had agreed on. Helen doesn't always remember things anymore, Amanda told them, smiling softly. So we're trying to keep things simple for her. I was standing 3 steps behind her, holding a porcelain teacup I suddenly felt I might drop. Hello, my dear viewers. Right from the start, this feels wrong. Too calm, too prepared. If someone spoke about you like that, would you stay quiet or speak up? Tell me in the comments. No one looked surprised. That's what struck me first. Not confusion, not concern, just quiet acceptance. A few polite nods. Someone gave me that look people reserve for the fragile, the already fading. I opened my mouth to correct her, but Amanda turned just slightly, placed her hand on my arm, and squeezed. Not hard, just enough. See, she added gently, she gets overwhelmed in busy rooms. I wasn't overwhelmed. I was furious, but I said nothing. My name is Helen Parker. I am 80 years old, and until that moment, I had never needed anyone to explain me to a room. The conversation moved on as if I had already been filed away under something temporary, something unreliable. Amanda guided me to a chair I didn't ask for, brought me a glass of water I didn't want, and spoke over me every time I tried to join in. It was subtle. So subtle that if I had complained, I would have sounded ungrateful. David, my son, stood across the room, watching, not intervening, not questioning, just observing. When our eyes met, he gave me a small, careful smile, the kind you give someone you're not quite sure about anymore. That smile unsettled me more than Amanda's words, because Amanda could lie. But David? David should have known. I sat there, listening as pieces of my life were rearranged in real time. Small things at first. She forgot her appointment last week. I hadn't. Amanda had written the wrong time on the note. She gets confused with her medication. I don't. I've been managing prescriptions longer than Amanda has been alive. We're just worried about her safety. Worried? It sounded so reasonable, so kind. That's how you do it, I realized. Not with accusations, but with concern. Not with force, but with suggestion. You don't take a life away. You gently convince everyone it's already slipping. And suddenly, things that had annoyed me over the past few months began to rearrange themselves into something else entirely. The missing mail, the moved keys. The time Amanda reminded me of a doctor's visit that had never existed. The way she always arrived just in time to help when I didn't need help. I had thought it was coincidence, carelessness, maybe even my own oversight once or twice. But sitting there, listening to her speak about me like I was already halfway gone, I felt something cold settle into place. This wasn't happening by accident, and I wasn't imagining it. I looked around the room again, really looked this time, at the polite smiles, at the careful distance people kept from my words, at David, who now avoided holding my gaze for more than a second. Amanda hadn't just told a lie. She had prepared it. And the worst part? It was working. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a bowl of untouched lentil soup growing cold in front of me. And for the first time in years, I questioned my own memory. Not because it had failed me, but because someone had started editing it from the outside. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, as if even the walls were waiting to see whether I would notice what had been done to me. I began with something simple. My keys. They had gone missing 3 times in the past 2 weeks. Each time, Amanda had found them. Once in the hallway drawer where I never kept them, once in the bathroom, and once, ridiculously, on the windowsill behind a curtain I hadn't touched in months. At the time, she laughed it off gently, told David, "It's little things like this," and gave me that same patient smile. But I knew where I leave my keys. I always have. I stood up, walked to the small ceramic dish near the door, the one with the faded blue glaze I bought at a street market decades ago, and placed my keys there deliberately. Then I paused, not out of confusion, but out of decision. If something was being moved, I would know. Next, I checked my mail. 2 envelopes were already opened. Not torn, not damaged, just neatly sliced, as if someone had taken their time. One was a bank notice. The other, a letter from the clinic. I hadn't opened either. I was certain of it. I have my routines. I open my mail in the morning, with tea, never in the afternoon, never in a rush. I sat back down slowly. This wasn't clumsiness. This was placement. I moved to the cabinet where I keep my medications. A simple weekly organizer, nothing complicated. I opened it and stared for a long moment. Something felt off. Not obviously wrong. Just slightly shifted, like a painting hung a fraction too low. I took out the prescription bottles and read the labels one by one. And then I saw it. One of them, small, white, unfamiliar, was not mine. I held it in my hand, turning it slightly, reading the name again. It wasn't something I had ever been prescribed. And yet, 2 of the compartments in my organizer were already filled with it. I didn't panic. That's the strange thing about moments like this. Panic is loud. What I felt was quiet, precise. I closed the cabinet carefully and returned everything exactly as I had found it. Then I sat down again, folded my hands, and allowed myself to think. Amanda had access to everything. The house, the kitchen, my routines, my trust, or at least what remained of it. And David had given her that access without question. I thought back to the appointment she had insisted on scheduling for me last month. A specialist, she said. I had canceled it at the last minute because something about it didn't sit right. She had been unusually insistent. Not worried, insistent. At the time, I told myself she was overstepping. Now I understood. She wasn't trying to help me. She was building something, carefully, patiently, piece by piece. A misplaced key here, an opened letter there, a pill I never asked for. A story repeated just often enough to settle into other people's minds. Not dramatic, not obvious, just consistent. That's how you make a lie feel like truth. You don't rush it. You let it grow. I looked around my kitchen. The same kitchen I had stood in for decades, where every drawer, every cupboard, every quiet corner belonged to my memory. And for the first time, it felt like someone else had been living inside it without asking. Not loudly, not visibly, but deliberately. And I realized something else, something even more unsettling. If Amanda was doing all of this, she wasn't experimenting. She already knew exactly what she was trying to prove. And unless I did something soon, she was going to succeed. The next morning, I decided to speak to my son, not as a woman defending herself, but as a mother who still believed there was something in him worth reaching. I did not rehearse what I would say. I did not write it down. I have never needed notes to tell the truth. David arrived just after 10. He didn't knock the way he used to. He tapped twice and let himself in, like someone entering a place that no longer fully belonged to me. "Helen," he said, gently, carefully. "Not Mom, not anymore." That alone told me how far this had already gone. "I'd like to talk," I said, gesturing toward the table. I had already set it. 2 cups, fresh tea, a small plate of butter cookies. Routine matters. It shows stability. It shows intention. He sat down, but not fully. There was a tension in him, like he expected the conversation to go wrong before it even began. "I heard what Amanda said yesterday," I started. Calm, direct, no accusation in my tone. "About me." He exhaled slowly, as if relieved that I had brought it up first. "She's just concerned," he said. "We both are." "We?" I repeated. He nodded, avoiding my eyes for a moment. "Mom, there have been signs." I let the silence sit between us. "What signs, David?" I asked. He hesitated, then leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice as if we were discussing something delicate, something already decided. "You forget things, small things. You get confused. The keys, the appointments. You've been different." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said evenly. "Things have been moved. That's not the same." His expression shifted. Not convinced, not dismissive, just tired. "That's what I mean," he said. "You're insisting everything around you is wrong instead of considering that maybe, just maybe, it's you." There it was. Not anger, not doubt, certainty. I studied his face. My son, the boy I raised. The man who once called me for advice on everything from taxes to how long to roast a chicken, and now he was speaking to me like I was a problem to be managed. "Did you check the medication?" I asked quietly. He frowned. "What?" "In the cabinet. Did you look at it?" Amanda had told him something. I could see it, but not everything. "Mom, you don't need to go through things like that," he said. "Amanda's been helping you keep everything organized. That's the point. Helping. Such a useful word." "And the appointment she booked for me?" I continued. "The specialist. Did you speak to them yourself?" He shifted in his chair. "She handled it. She's good at that kind of thing." Of course she was. I leaned back slightly, studying him in silence, long enough to make him uncomfortable. "David," I said finally, "do you believe I have dementia?" He didn't answer immediately. That pause was longer than anything he could have said. "I think," he began slowly, choosing his words like they were fragile. "I think something is going on, and I think ignoring it would be irresponsible." Irresponsible. The word settled heavily between us. Not cruel, not dramatic, just final. I nodded once, not because I agreed, but because I understood. "You're trusting her," I said. "She's trying to help you," he replied, a bit more firmly now, as if repeating something he had already accepted as truth. "No," I said quietly. "She's building something." He sighed, leaning back, running a hand over his face. "Mom, listen to yourself. That's exactly what I mean. You're starting to sound paranoid." There it was again. Another word placed carefully into position. Not confused, not mistaken. Paranoid. A label, not a question. I felt something shift inside me then. Not break, no. I've lived long enough to know what breaking feels like. This was different. This was clarity. "You're going to let her take control of everything," I said, more to myself than to him. "That's not what this is," he replied quickly. "We just want to make sure you're safe, that your finances, your house, everything is managed properly." Managed. By her, I said. He didn't correct me. That silence was the answer. I stood up slowly, taking my cup with me, more out of habit than thirst. I walked to the sink, set it down carefully, and looked out the window at the same quiet street I had watched for years. Nothing outside had changed, but inside, everything had. "Thank you for coming," I said after a moment. He blinked, surprised. "That's it?" "Yes. Aren't you going to—" "No," I interrupted gently. "There's nothing more to say right now." He hesitated, clearly expecting resistance, emotion, something he could respond to. But I gave him none of it. After a moment, he stood, unsure, and moved toward the door. "We'll figure this out," he said, almost automatically. I didn't answer. I waited until I heard the door close behind him, until the house settled again into silence. Then I walked back to the table, sat down, and opened the small drawer beside me. Inside was an old leather notebook I hadn't used in years. I picked up a pen, and I began to write. Dates, times, words, movements, every detail exactly as it happened. If they wanted a story, I would give them a better one they couldn't rewrite. I did not sleep much that night, but I did not need to. Clarity has a way of sharpening the body more than rest ever could. By morning, I already knew what I was going to do. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but precisely. I would not argue with Amanda. I would not convince David. I would not defend myself in a room that had already decided who I was. I would prove it. Quietly. I dressed carefully that morning, not for anyone else, but for myself. A pressed blouse, a dark skirt, the small gold watch I've worn for years. I pinned a modest brooch to my collar, something understated but deliberate. When people expect to see decline, even posture becomes evidence. In the kitchen, I made breakfast the way I always have, slowly, methodically. I even prepared something I hadn't made in a while, just to remind myself of my own hands. A simple dish, nothing extravagant, but precise enough that it requires attention. I watched the timing, the heat, the texture. Everything landed exactly where it should. Memory isn't a feeling, it's function. And mine worked perfectly. After I finished, I sat down with my notebook and reviewed what I had written the night before. Each entry was clean, no emotion, no speculation, just facts. Keys moved, mail opened, medication altered, statements made publicly, witnesses present. I underlined one line more than the others. Medication altered. That was not a misunderstanding. That was interference. I closed the notebook and reached for the phone. "Emma?" I said when she answered. Her voice softened immediately. "Grandma? Are you okay?" "Yes," I replied. "But I need your help, and I need you to listen carefully." There was a pause on the other end. Not hesitation, but attention. "Of course," she said. "I don't want you to tell your father," I continued. "And I don't want you to speak to Amanda about this. Not yet." Another pause. "Okay," she said slowly. "What's going on?" "I'm going to see a doctor," I said. "A real one, not someone Amanda arranged." Emma didn't interrupt. "That means I need you to drive me," I added. "Out of town." "How soon?" "Tomorrow." The answer came without hesitation. "I'll be there." I allowed myself the smallest exhale. "Thank you," I said. "Grandma," she added, her voice tightening just slightly. "You don't sound confused." I almost smiled. "I'm not," I said. We ended the call shortly after, and for the first time in days, I felt something settle. Not relief, not comfort. Alignment. One person. One witness who still saw me clearly. That was enough to begin. The rest of the day, I behaved exactly as Amanda expected. I moved slower when she was around. I let her repeat herself. I allowed her to remind me of things I already knew. I even pretended to search for my glasses, when I knew exactly where they were. Because now I understood something she didn't. She thought she was watching me, but she wasn't looking closely. That afternoon, she stopped by unannounced, as she often did. I heard her keys before I saw her. Another small detail that no longer escaped me. "Helen?" she called out in that same soft tone. "I'm in the living room," I replied. She walked in, scanning me quickly, subtly, the way people do when they're checking for signs. Not greeting, evaluating. "How are you feeling today?" she asked. "Fine," I said. She tilted her head slightly. "Did you take your medication?" "Yes." That was not a lie. I just didn't say which ones. She smiled, satisfied, and stepped closer. "Good. That's important." Then, casually, as if it were nothing, she reached for the small tray on the side table and adjusted it. A glass, a book, a pair of reading glasses. Moving things. Always moving things. I watched her do it. I said nothing. Because now, every small action of hers wasn't just irritating. It was evidence. She stayed for a while longer, making light conversation, slipping in questions designed to test me without making it obvious. Dates, names, minor details. I answered all of them, sometimes correctly, sometimes just slowly enough to give her what she expected. Not too much. Just enough. When she finally left, I didn't move immediately. I sat there, listening to the quiet again. Then I stood up, walked over to the tray she had touched, and returned every item exactly to where it had been before she arrived. Not because I needed it that way, but because now I was keeping score. Tomorrow I would see the doctor, and whatever Amanda thought she was building, I was about to tear the foundation out from under it. Emma arrived exactly on time the next morning. Not early, not late. That alone told me she understood the seriousness of what I had asked without needing it explained twice. She didn't come inside right away, just knocked once, waited, and let me open the door myself. "Ready?" she asked. "Yes," I said, picking up my coat. She looked at me carefully then, not the way Amanda did, not searching for flaws, but confirming something. Presence. Awareness. Me. "You look good," she added quietly. "I am good," I replied. We didn't speak much during the drive at first. The road stretched out ahead of us, quiet, steady, uninterrupted. I chose the clinic deliberately, far enough that no one connected to Amanda would be involved, but close enough that it wouldn't draw attention if anyone asked later. About 20 minutes in, Emma finally spoke. "Grandma, what exactly do you think she's doing?" I kept my eyes forward. "I don't think," I said. "I observe." She nodded slightly, gripping the wheel a bit tighter. "Okay," she said. "What have you observed?" "Patterns," I answered. "Consistency. Intention." I paused, then added, "And medication that does not belong to me." That made her turn her head for just a second. "What?" "I'll show you later," I said calmly. "For now, we focus on the appointment." She didn't push further. That was something I appreciated about Emma. She knew when to ask and when to wait. When we arrived, the clinic was exactly what I had hoped for. Quiet, professional, no unnecessary softness, no artificial warmth meant to mask dismissal, just structure. The receptionist greeted me directly, not Emma. That mattered. "Name?" she asked. "Helen Parker," I replied. "Appointment with Dr. Susan Miller?" "Yes." "Right this way." No hesitation, no side glances, no lowered voice. Already, the difference was unmistakable. Inside the examination room, I sat upright, hands folded in my lap. my posture steady. Emma remained beside me, silent but present. A few minutes later, Dr. Susan Miller walked in. She didn't smile too quickly. She didn't slow her speech. She didn't look at Emma before addressing me. "Mrs. Parker," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Miller." I shook it firmly. "Thank you for seeing me," I replied. She sat across from me, opened a folder, and looked directly into my eyes, not through me, not around me. "What brings you in today?" No assumptions. No preloaded narrative, just a question. "My daughter-in-law has been telling people I have dementia," I said evenly. "I'm here to find out if that's true." There was no reaction of shock, no immediate reassurance. Just attention. "All right," Dr. Miller said. "Then we'll take this step by step." And we did. The questions began simply, but not insultingly. Dates, orientation, sequences, language, recall. Not once did she speak to me as if I were incapable. And not once did I hesitate beyond what was normal. Then the tasks became more layered. Patterns, problem solving, verbal fluency. I completed each one carefully, not rushing, not performing, just answering. At one point, she paused, watching me more closely. "Have you experienced any episodes of confusion recently?" she asked. "Not confusion," I said. "Disruption." "Explain." "Objects being moved. Medication appearing that I was not prescribed. Appointments being described that I did not schedule." Emma shifted slightly beside me, but said nothing. Dr. Miller wrote something down. "Who manages your medication?" she asked. "My daughter-in-law has access to it," I replied. "Do you manage it yourself?" "I did," I said, "until recently." She nodded once. "Do you have a list of your current prescriptions?" "Yes." I reached into my bag and handed it to her. She reviewed it quietly, then frowned, just slightly. "This medication," she said, pointing to the unfamiliar one I had noticed. "When were you prescribed this?" "I wasn't," I said. Silence filled the room for a moment. Not awkward, not tense, focused. Dr. Miller placed the paper down carefully. "All right," she said. "We're going to run a full assessment. Cognitive, neurological, and medication review." She looked at me again, steady and direct. "And Mrs. Parker, based on what I'm seeing so far, there is no indication that you are experiencing dementia." Emma exhaled sharply beside me. I didn't. I already knew. But hearing it, clearly, professionally, without hesitation, locked something into place. Not relief. Confirmation. Dr. Miller continued. "However, I am concerned about the medication inconsistency you mentioned. That can absolutely cause symptoms that might be misinterpreted." "Misinterpreted," I repeated. "Yes," she said, "or misrepresented." That word hung in the air longer. She understood. Not everything, but enough. "I will prepare a full written report," she added, "including cognitive results and medication concerns." I nodded. "That will be useful," I said. "Yes," she replied calmly. "I believe it will." When the appointment ended, I stood up slowly, thanked her, and walked out without looking back. In the hallway, Emma finally turned to me. "You were right," she said, her voice tight. "All of it." I looked ahead, not at her. "No," I said quietly. "I wasn't right." I paused just for a second. I was precise. And now I had proof. On the drive back, Emma didn't turn on the radio. She kept both hands on the wheel, her posture tighter than before, like she was holding something in place inside herself. "They've been drugging you," she said finally, the words coming out sharper than she probably intended. "No," I replied calmly. Not they. She glanced at me. Her, I corrected. Emma swallowed, her jaw tightening. We need to go to the police. Not yet. What do you mean, not yet? She said, her voice rising. Grandma, this is serious. I know exactly how serious it is, I said, not raising my voice but cutting clean through hers. Which is why we don't move without everything in place. She fell silent. Right now, I continued, we have a doctor's opinion and a suspicious prescription. That's not enough. Not for what she's trying to do. Emma exhaled slowly, forcing herself to think instead of react. Okay, she said. So what do we need? Proof that connects her to it, I answered. Directly. Not assumptions. Not conclusions. Evidence. The rest of the drive passed in silence again. But this time, it wasn't uncertainty. It was calculation. When we pulled up to the house, I didn't get out immediately. Before we go inside, I said, you're going to look at the medication yourself. Emma nodded. Inside, everything was exactly as I had left it. That, too, was information. We moved to the cabinet together. I opened it slowly, deliberately, and took out the organizer and the bottles. There, I said, handing her the unfamiliar one. She turned it over, reading the label twice. This isn't yours, she said. I know. Do you recognize the pharmacy? Yes. Have you ever been prescribed anything like this? No. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something shift in her expression. Not just concern, anger, controlled, but real. She picked this up, Emma said. Didn't she? Yes. How do you know? I don't, I said. Not yet. Emma placed the bottle down carefully, as if it might explode. Then we find out, she said. I nodded once. That's step one. We spent the next hour going through everything methodically. Not emotionally, not speculatively, just facts. We photographed the medication, the labels, the organizer, the dates. Emma checked the prescription number against the pharmacy database online. It was filled 3 weeks ago, she said. I never requested it, I replied. It says it was picked up in person. Of course it was. Under your name, Emma added. I almost smiled. Convenient. Emma looked at me. We can call the pharmacy. We will, I said. But not like this. She frowned. What do you mean? We don't accuse, we ask. That distinction mattered, because accusations make people defensive. Questions make them talk. I reached for my notebook and added another line. Unfamiliar prescription, filled 3 weeks ago, picked up in person. Then I underlined it. Twice. Emma watched me write, then said quietly, She's been planning this for a long time, hasn't she? Yes. And Dad? She hesitated. He has no idea? I paused. Then I closed the notebook. He has enough, I said. That was the most honest answer I could give. We moved through the rest of the house next. Drawers, documents, mail. Emma found something I hadn't. A folded envelope tucked between 2 magazines on the side table. She opened it, scanning quickly. Grandma, she said slowly, this is information about power of attorney. I took it from her. The paper was clean, untouched, but not new. Someone had read it, studied it, considered it, not recently. Carefully. This didn't come in the mail today, I said. No, Emma replied. It's been here, which meant it had been placed. I added it to the notebook. Power of attorney documents present in-house, another piece, another line, another intention revealed. Emma stepped back, running a hand through her hair. This is insane, she muttered. No, I said quietly. It's structured. That was the difference. Insanity is chaotic. This was controlled, deliberate, layered. Amanda wasn't reacting to anything. She was executing. And now, I could finally see the outline of it clearly. Control of medication, control of narrative, control of legal authority, step by step, clean, quiet, respectable. I closed the notebook and looked around my own home again. But this time, I didn't feel invaded. I felt informed. "She thinks I'm already losing," I said. Emma looked at me. "Are you?" I met her gaze, steady. "No." And for the first time since this began, I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was building something back, something stronger, and much harder to take. Amanda didn't come the next day. That, more than anything, told me she was adjusting. People like her don't stop. They recalibrate. So I waited. I kept everything exactly as it was. I didn't touch the medication. I didn't move the documents. I didn't correct a single thing she had arranged. If she came back, and she would, I wanted her to feel comfortable, predictable, safe. Late afternoon, just as the light began to fade into that soft gray that makes everything look quieter than it is, I heard the door again. No knock this time. Just the key. Emma looked at me from across the room. I gave her a small, almost invisible nod. Amanda stepped inside like she always did, smooth, composed, already in control of the space. "Helen?" she called. "I'm here," I replied. She walked into the living room and paused just slightly when she saw Emma. "Oh," she said, her smile tightening for half a second before settling again. "Emma, I didn't know you were visiting." "I decided to stop by," Emma said casually. Amanda's eyes flickered between us, measuring something. Then she relaxed. "Well, that's nice," she said. "Family time is important." Of course it was, especially when you were trying to rewrite one. She turned back to me, her voice softening. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," I said. That was not the answer she expected. She tilted her head slightly. "Better?" "Yes," I replied. "Clearer." A pause, not long, but enough. "Good," she said, stepping closer. "That's good to hear." Her eyes moved around the room quickly, almost imperceptibly, checking. The tray, the table, the cabinet, everything exactly where she had left it. Satisfied. Then she shifted, changing tone just slightly. "I was thinking," she said, "maybe we should revisit that specialist appointment, the one you canceled. It might be time to—" "I've already seen a doctor," I said. The words landed clean, no hesitation, no softness. Amanda froze, not dramatically, just a fraction too still. "Oh?" she said lightly. "That's unexpected." "I didn't want to burden you," I replied. Emma stayed silent. Amanda smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. "And what did they say?" she asked. There it was, the question she couldn't avoid. "No dementia," I said. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Amanda let out a small breath, almost like a laugh. "Well," she said, "these things can be complicated. Early stages don't always show clearly. Sometimes it takes—" "They ran full tests," I interrupted calmly. Another pause. Her eyes sharpened now. Not worried, calculating. "I'd be happy to look at the report," she said smoothly, "just to make sure everything was thorough." Of course she would. "Not yet," I said. That surprised her. "Why not?" "Because I haven't finished reviewing everything myself," I replied. That wasn't entirely true, but it sounded right. Amanda studied me more carefully now. Something had shifted. She could feel it, not enough to understand, but enough to notice. "That's good," she said slowly, taking initiative. Her tone had changed, less guiding, more cautious. Then, as if remembering her role, she stepped toward the cabinet. "Did you take your medication today?" she asked. "Yes." "I'll just check," she said lightly, already reaching for it. Emma moved before I did. "I already checked it," she said, her voice calm but firm. Amanda's hand stopped mid-motion. "Oh?" she said. "Yeah," Emma continued, stepping closer. "Just making sure everything's correct." Amanda turned her head slowly toward her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. And in that silence, something broke. Not openly, not loudly, but subtly. The balance. Amanda smiled again, but this time it was thinner. "Well," she said, withdrawing her hand, "that's very responsible of you." Emma didn't smile back. "Someone has to be," she said. That landed. Amanda's eyes flickered, just for a second. Then she turned back to me. "I'll come by tomorrow," she said. "We should talk about next steps." Next steps. Always moving forward. Always progressing. But this time, not on her terms. "Of course," I said calmly. She nodded once, then turned and walked out. The door closed. Silence returned. Emma let out a breath she had been holding. "That was important," I said. She looked at me. "She knows something changed," Emma said. "Yes." "Is that a problem?" I shook my head slightly. "No," I said. "It's timing." I walked over to the table, picked up my notebook, and added another line. "Reaction to Dr. Mention. Controlled, but disrupted." Then another. "Attempted to access medication. Interrupted." I closed the notebook. "She's accelerating now," Emma said quietly. "Yes." I looked toward the door. "And that means—" I paused, then finished it. "She's going to make her move soon. And this time, I would be ready." The next morning began too quietly. No message from Amanda, no call. No sudden appearance at the door. After everything that had been building, the silence felt unnatural, like the pause before something carefully timed. I didn't waste it. Emma arrived again, earlier this time, and we sat at the kitchen table with everything laid out in front of us. The medication, the photos, the notes, the printed pharmacy record she had managed to pull. "I called them," she said, sliding a paper toward me. "I didn't accuse anyone, just asked who picked it up." "And?" I asked. "They wouldn't give me a name over the phone," she said. "But they confirmed it wasn't you." I nodded. "That's enough for now." Emma leaned forward slightly. "They said whoever picked it up used ID and signed." That mattered. "Good," I said. "That means there's a record." Emma watched me closely. "You're not surprised?" "No," I replied, because she wouldn't risk something sloppy. Amanda didn't make mistakes like that. If she had done this, and she had, it would be clean, proper. Documented in a way that looked legitimate from the outside. That's what made it dangerous. I opened my notebook again and added another line. Prescription collected with ID, not by me. Signature exists. Then I underlined it once. Emma tapped the table lightly. "So what now?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I reached into my bag and took out the envelope Dr. Miller had given me the day before. The official report. Clean, structured, final. I placed it on the table between us. "This," I said, "is the first piece she can't control." Emma looked at it, then back at me. "Are you going to show her?" "Yes." "When?" I met her eyes. "When she thinks she's about to win." Emma leaned back slightly, exhaling. "You're waiting for something." "Yes." "For what?" "For her to commit." Emma frowned. "Commit to what?" "To the lie," I said. "Publicly, clearly, in a way she can't walk back." Silence settled between us. Then Emma nodded slowly. "The family meeting," she said. I didn't smile. Yes. Right on time, my phone buzzed. A message. From Amanda. I picked it up, read it once, then placed it back down on the table. Emma didn't need to ask. What did she say? She wants to gather everyone tomorrow evening, I replied. Says it's important, that we need to discuss my situation properly. Emma let out a quiet breath. There it is. Yes, I said. Exactly where I wanted her. Not rushing, not hiding, stepping forward on her own. I stood up slowly and walked to the window, looking out at the same still street. She believes she has control of the narrative, I said. Emma joined me. She kind of does, she replied. At least with Dad. Yes. And probably others. Yes. Emma crossed her arms. So when you walk into that room, I won't be defending myself, I said. I turned slightly toward her. I'll be ending it. She studied my face for a moment. You're calm, she said. I'm prepared. That was the difference. I had the report, the medication evidence, the pharmacy confirmation, the timeline, and most importantly, I had her pattern. Amanda thought this meeting would be the moment everything finally aligned in her favor. That once it was spoken aloud, formally, in front of witnesses, it would become truth. She was right about one thing. After tomorrow, everything would change. Just not the way she expected. I walked back to the table, picked up the report, and slid it carefully back into the envelope. Today, I said, we finished preparing. Emma nodded. And tomorrow? I looked at her steadily. Tomorrow, I said, we let her speak first. Because once she did, there would be no way out for her. By the time evening approached, the house no longer felt like a place where I lived. It felt like a place I was preparing to defend. I didn't rush. I didn't pace. Everything I did that day had a rhythm. Measured, deliberate, controlled. I reviewed the report from Dr. Susan Miller once more, not because I doubted it, but because I wanted every word in it to sit clearly in my mind. Language matters when truth is about to collide with a lie. Emma sat across from me, going through the copies we had made. 3 sets, she said. 1 for you, 1 backup, 1 in case something disappears. Good, I replied. She looked up. Do you think she'd actually try something like that? I met her eyes. I think she already has. That was enough. We didn't say much after that. Around 6, I changed again. Not dramatically, just enough. A darker blouse, a structured jacket. Not for appearance, but for presence. When people expect weakness, even the way you stand becomes evidence against them. Emma watched me quietly. You look, she paused, searching for the right word. Untouchable. I almost smiled. That's the idea. At exactly 7, my phone buzzed again. Amanda, we're all here. Don't worry, Helen, we're just going to talk. I read it once. Then I stood up. Time, I said. Emma grabbed her coat without another word. The drive was short. Too short. I used those minutes to settle everything inside me. Not emotions, those were already quiet. I settled intention. No interruptions, no reactions, no hesitation. When we arrived, the house was already lit. Warm lights in the windows, inviting, prepared. Emma parked, but before we got out, she turned to me. Last chance, she said. We can still go in there and just listen, not push. I shook my head slightly. No. She held my gaze. This ends tonight. We stepped out of the car. The air was cool, still. I walked to the door and knocked once. Amanda opened it almost immediately, like she had been standing just on the other side. Helen, she said softly, smiling. I'm so glad you came. Of course she was. I stepped inside. The room was arranged exactly as I expected. David. 2 family friends. Someone I recognized vaguely, probably introduced as a specialist or advisor. Chairs positioned in a loose circle, not a conversation, a setup. Emma stayed close to me, but slightly behind. Amanda guided me toward a seat. "Let's all sit," she said gently. "This is just a safe space." Safe. I sat down, slowly, deliberately, and waited. Amanda didn't start immediately. She let the silence build just enough to feel important. Then she took a breath. "We're here," she began, her voice calm, controlled, practiced, "because we're concerned about Helen. Not Mom, not even Mrs. Parker. Helen, distanced, managed. We've all noticed changes," she continued. "Memory issues, confusion, moments where she doesn't seem fully aware." She spoke smoothly, no hesitation, no doubt, like someone who had rehearsed this more than once. I said nothing. I let her continue. Because this was exactly what I needed. The room is set, everyone's watching, and she's walking straight into it. If you were in Helen's place right now, would you interrupt? Or let them keep talking? Amanda glanced around the room, drawing them in. "I've tried to handle this quietly," she said. "Out of respect, out of love. But at this point, we need to consider what's best for her safety." There it was. Safety. The word that opens doors. David shifted in his seat. "I think," he started, then stopped, glancing at Amanda. She gave him a small nod, encouraging. "I think we need to start making decisions," he finished. "Decisions, not questions, not discussion. Conclusions." Amanda leaned forward slightly. "We've even looked into options," she said gently. "Support, legal protections, just in case things progress." I felt Emma tense behind me. I didn't move. Amanda continued, building carefully. "We're not saying anything drastic needs to happen immediately," she added, "but it would be irresponsible not to prepare." Prepare. Always forward. Always controlled. Then she turned to me, finally. "Helen," she said softly, "we're all here for you. We just want to make sure you're taken care of." There it was. The moment. The invitation to surrender. The expectation that I would hesitate, get emotional, say something they could soften, redirect, reinterpret. I folded my hands in my lap, looked directly at her, and for the first time that evening, I spoke. Calm, clear, precise. "No," I said. Silence fell instantly, not the controlled silence from before. A different one, sharper, final. Amanda blinked. "No?" she repeated gently. I held her gaze. "No," I said again. Then I reached into my bag and placed the envelope on the table in front of me. Everything in the room shifted. Before a single page was even opened. No one moved. Not Amanda. Not David. Not the others sitting in that carefully arranged circle. Even Emma stayed completely still behind me, like she understood that whatever happened next had to unfold without interruption. Amanda recovered first. She always did. Her smile returned, slightly tighter but still controlled. "Helen," she said gently, "we're not here to argue. We're here to help you." I didn't look away from her. "Then you should listen," I replied. That caught her off balance, not visibly, but enough. David shifted in his seat again. "Mom, maybe we should just go through this calmly." "We will," I said. I opened the envelope. Slowly, deliberately. No rush. Inside were several pages. Clean. Official. Structured in a way that didn't leave space for interpretation. I took the first one out and placed it on the table. "This," I said, is a full cognitive assessment conducted by Dr. Susan Miller. Amanda's eyes flickered, just slightly, then back to neutral. I'm sure that's helpful, she said smoothly. But as I mentioned earlier, early-stage conditions don't always. It concludes, I continued without raising my voice, that I show no signs of dementia. Silence. This time, heavier. David leaned forward slightly. What? I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Amanda. Would you like to read it? I asked. She didn't reach for the paper, not immediately. That hesitation, that was the first crack. Instead, she let out a soft breath. Helen, I'm not saying you don't believe that, but sometimes patients... I placed the second page down. A full breakdown of cognitive testing, I said. Memory, language, orientation, executive function. Then the third, normal ranges across all categories. David reached forward and picked up the report. He started reading. And for the first time since I walked into that room, Amanda stopped speaking. I let that silence stretch. Then I reached into the envelope again. And this, I said, placing another sheet beside the report, is a record of a prescription filled under my name 3 weeks ago. Amanda's head turned slightly. Just enough. I was never prescribed that medication, I continued. David looked up from the report, confused now. What medication? I didn't answer him. I answered the room. A sedative, I said. One that can cause confusion, disorientation, and memory disruption, if taken incorrectly. Emma stepped forward slightly now, just enough to be seen. We confirmed it with the pharmacy, she said. It was picked up in person. Amanda's voice came back, sharper this time. That doesn't prove anything, she said quickly. There could be a mistake. Pharmacies make errors all the time. Not this one, I said. I reached into my bag again and took out the final document. This prescription, I said, placing it down carefully, was signed for. The room went still again. Not by me. David looked between the papers, then at Amanda. Amanda? He said. Her composure held, but barely. This is ridiculous, she replied. You're drawing conclusions without context. I'm not drawing anything, I said. I leaned forward slightly. For months, things in my home have been moved, my mail opened, my schedule altered. And now, medication I never requested appears under my name. I paused, let it settle, then added quietly, and at the same time you've been telling people I'm losing my mind. Amanda shook her head, letting out a small, controlled laugh. This is exactly what I was worried about, she said, turning to the others. Paranoia. Connecting unrelated things into a narrative. No, I said. That word cut clean through her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. This is not confusion, I continued. This is structure. I turned my head slightly, finally looking at David. You said you were concerned about my safety. He nodded slowly, uncertain now. Yes. Then you should be, I said. And I looked back at Amanda. Just not about me. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Because now, the story she had built so carefully was starting to collapse under its own weight. David was still holding the report, but he wasn't reading anymore. He was staring at Amanda, not accusing, not yet, but no longer certain. Amanda, he said again, slower this time. Did you pick this up? She didn't answer immediately. That was her mistake, because up until now she had always answered first. Always filled the silence before it could turn against her. Now, the silence belonged to me. This is insane, she said finally, shaking her head. I've been trying to help her for months, and now suddenly I'm being accused of… What? Poisoning her? No one said poisoning, I replied calmly. I let that sit for a second. You chose that word. A flicker, small, but real. One of the women sitting across from us shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I think maybe we should slow down, she said. This is getting intense. Of course it was. Because now, it was real. Amanda turned toward her quickly, seizing the opening. This is exactly what I've been dealing with, she said, her voice tightening just enough to sound strained. She gets fixated on things, misinterprets them, and then builds… I brought documentation, I interrupted, not louder, just clearer. Amanda stopped. I reached into my bag again and took out my notebook. Worn leather, clean pages, precise handwriting. I placed it on the table and opened it. Dates, I said. Times, events, witnesses. I turned it slightly so the others could see. Every instance of something being moved, altered, or misrepresented in the last 3 months. David leaned forward again. Amanda didn't. She stayed still, watching me, calculating. This doesn't prove anything, she said, but her voice had lost some of its smoothness. Anyone can write things down after the fact. I didn't write them after, I said. I flipped a few pages. The ink changes. The timing is consistent. Some entries include people in this room. That landed. One of the men across from us frowned slightly, leaning in. That's actually true, he said. You mentioned the appointment mix-up that day. I remember that. Amanda's head snapped toward him. It was nothing, she said quickly. A misunderstanding. There have been many misunderstandings, I said. Then I closed the notebook. Softly. Controlled. And all of them seemed to benefit you. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was shifting. David stood up slowly. Amanda, he said, his voice no longer careful. I need you to answer the question. She looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time, she didn't have immediate control of him. I've been managing everything, she said. The house, her appointments, her medications, because someone had to. That's not what I asked, he said. Another crack. Emma stepped forward again, her voice steady. The pharmacy confirmed it was picked up in person, she said. With ID. Amanda turned toward her sharply. And you just believed them? She snapped. You didn't think to question whether your grandmother might have… I was there, Emma said. That stopped her. Completely. I saw the medication before she even mentioned it, Emma continued. She didn't know what it was. I checked it. Amanda opened her mouth. Closed it. Because now, there was no clean direction left to push. The room had changed. Not fully, but enough. The concern was no longer one-sided. The narrative was no longer stable. David looked between us, me, Amanda, the papers, the notebook. Everything he had accepted was now sitting in front of him, contradicting itself. He started, then stopped. He looked at Amanda again. What else don't I know? That question didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to the room. And for the first time since this began, Amanda had no prepared answer. No one spoke after that. Not immediately. Because now the room wasn't listening to Amanda anymore. It was watching her. She felt it. You could see it in the way her posture changed. Just slightly. Less open. Less controlled. Like she was no longer presenting, but holding something together. This is getting out of hand, she said finally, her voice sharper than before. We're here because Helen needs help, and somehow This has turned into an attack on me. No, I said quietly. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. This has turned into the truth. That landed heavier than anything else. David ran a hand over his face, pacing once, then stopping. I just need clarity, he said. That's all I'm asking for. He looked at Amanda again. Did you pick up that prescription? There it was again. Clear, direct, unavoidable. Amanda exhaled slowly, then shook her head. I may have, she said. I pick up a lot of things for her. Groceries, prescriptions, documents. That medication was never prescribed to me, I said. I didn't know that, she replied quickly. It could have been a mix-up. They hand things over all the time. They require ID, Emma said. Amanda turned sharply. And you think that means something? She snapped. You think they check every detail perfectly? Mistakes happen? You signed for it, I said. Silence. I let that word settle. Signed, not guessed, not assumed, documented. Amanda's eyes flickered, just for a second, but this time, everyone saw it. One of the women in the room shifted again, her voice quieter now. Maybe we should verify that, she said, with the pharmacy directly. Amanda didn't respond, because she couldn't, not without risking more. David stepped forward slightly. Yeah, he said, we will. His tone had changed, no longer guided, deciding. Amanda straightened. You're all seriously doing this right now? She said, looking around the room. After everything I've done for this family? That word, everything. It hung there, heavy, but empty. I reached into my bag one more time, slowly, carefully, and took out the final set of documents. These, I said, placing them on the table, were found in my house. Amanda's eyes dropped to them. For the first time, she didn't mask it fast enough. Recognition. Immediate. Uncontrolled. David picked them up before she could speak. What is this? He asked. He flipped the pages, then froze. Power of attorney? He said. Silence. Not soft, not controlled. Sharp, cold, final. These were already filled out, I said. Not signed, but prepared. David looked up. At Amanda. Why? He asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. I was planning ahead, she said, in case things got worse. That's responsible. Before any diagnosis? I asked. She didn't answer, because there wasn't a version of this. That sounded clean anymore. David's voice dropped. Lower, more dangerous. You were planning legal control over her life, he said, before a doctor even confirmed anything? Amanda stepped forward. You're twisting this, she said. I was protecting her. From what? I asked. That question cut deeper than the rest, because it demanded something she didn't have. A real answer, not a performance, not a tone, truth. And there wasn't one that worked. The room held still, waiting. Amanda looked around, searching for support, for alignment, for anything she could still hold on to. But it was gone, piece by piece, quietly, completely. David stepped back from her, not dramatically, just enough. I don't understand, he said. But this time, he wasn't asking her. He was realizing. And once that starts, it doesn't stop. I folded my hands again, calm, steady, watching it unfold, exactly as it needed to. Because now, there was nothing left for her to control. Amanda's composure didn't shatter all at once. It slipped, slowly, like something carefully held, finally losing strength in the fingers. You're all overreacting, she said, but her voice had changed. It wasn't smooth anymore. It wasn't controlled. It was tight, pressed, forced into place. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. No, I said quietly. I didn't move. You were trying to control it. That landed. Harder than anything before. Amanda turned to me fully now, dropping the soft tone completely. You have no idea what I've been dealing with, she said, her voice sharper, louder. Do you think this is easy? Watching someone decline? Trying to keep everything together while I'm not declining, I said. And for the first time, there was steel in my voice, not raised, but unmistakable. I am being managed. Silence. Then it broke. You are impossible, Amanda snapped, the mask finally cracking wide enough for everyone to see what had been underneath all along. Do you know how exhausting this has been? You question everything. You resist everything. You make everything harder than it needs to be. There it was. Not concern, not care, frustration, possession. David stared at her. Not confused anymore, not uncertain. Seeing. A man. The truth just came out, raw and unfiltered. The room has shifted completely. If you were in Helen's place right now, would you stop here or push even further? Tell me honestly. I watched her, calm, still. And the medication? I asked. She froze, just for a second. Then, it was to help, she said quickly. You were getting agitated, confused. I needed something to stabilize things until we had everything in place. In place? I repeated. She didn't answer, because now every word she chose only made it worse. Emma stepped forward fully now. You drugged her, she said. Amanda shook her head sharply. No, you're twisting this. You gave her something she wasn't prescribed, Emma said, louder now. You signed for it. You put it in her system, and then told everyone she was losing her mind. That was it. That was the line. Amanda turned, looking for support, for anyone, but no one moved. Not one person. David took a step back from her, then another, like he was physically separating himself from something he could no longer deny. You lied, he said. Quiet, but final. Amanda's face changed, not soft, not apologetic. Cold. You would have lost everything anyway, she said, her voice dropping, almost flat now. At least I was making sure it stayed in the family. That sentence ended everything. Not just the lie, not just the performance. Everything. Because now, there was no version of this that could be explained away. No misunderstanding, no confusion, no concern, just motive, clear, undeniable. I stood up slowly, not rushed, not dramatic, just finished. I believe, I said calmly, we're done here. No one argued. No one stopped me. Because there was nothing left to discuss. Only consequences. And they had already begun. No one followed me to the door. That was the first thing I noticed. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know how to move anymore. The structure Amanda had built for them was gone, and without it, they were left standing in something far less comfortable. Reality. Emma walked beside me, silent, steady. Behind us, I could hear voices beginning to rise again, not controlled, not guided, fractured, questions without answers. But I didn't turn around. I had heard enough. Outside, the air felt different, clearer, not lighter, but honest. Emma stopped near the car and turned to me. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, I said. And I meant it. Not because what had happened was easy, but because it was finished. Inside that room, Amanda had lost the only thing that made her dangerous. Control. We drove home in silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was settled. When we pulled into the driveway, I didn't get out immediately. I'm going to call a lawyer tomorrow, I said. Emma nodded. Good. And the pharmacy, I added. In person. Also good. I looked at the house. My house, still mine, still standing. I'm also changing access to everything, I continued. Accounts, documents, entry. Emma glanced at me. What about Dad? I paused. Not long, but long enough. He made his choice, I said. That was all. Inside, the house felt different now. Not watched, not interfered with. Reclaimed. I walked straight to the cabinet, took out the medication, and placed the unfamiliar bottle on the table. Tomorrow, it would become evidence, not suspicion, not theory. Evidence. Emma leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She's not going to just accept this, she said. No, I replied. She'll try to fix it. Yes. She might even lie more. I looked at her. She will. Emma exhaled slowly. Then what? I closed the cabinet. Then I turned to her. Then she runs out of room. That was the difference now. Before, Amanda had space to suggest, to shape, to control. Now, every move she made would leave a mark, and marks can be followed. I walked to the table, opened my notebook, and added the final entry for the day. Public admission of intent. Multiple witnesses. Then I closed it. Carefully. Deliberately. Emma watched me. What happens next? She asked. I met her eyes. Now, I said, it becomes formal. Legal, documented, irreversible. No more quiet adjustments. No more subtle interference. No more performance. Just facts. And consequences that follow them. I turned off the light in the kitchen and stood there for a moment in the dim quiet. Not thinking. Not doubting. Just certain. Amanda had spent months building something she thought was untouchable. Careful, polished, convincing. But she made one mistake. She believed I wouldn't see it. And worse, she believed I wouldn't understand it. Now, she was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. The next morning, I woke up at the same time I always had. 6:30. No alarm. No confusion. No hesitation. Routine is a quiet kind of power, and that morning, it felt like mine again. I made tea. Properly. Let it steep the exact amount of time. Took out my favorite cup, the one Amanda once called too delicate to use every day. I smiled at that. I used it anyway. Emma arrived just after 8. This time, she didn't ask if I was ready. She already knew. We went first to the pharmacy. In person. No phone calls. No soft questions. Direct. The pharmacist recognized me immediately, but this time, his expression was different. More careful. I need the pickup record for this prescription, I said, placing the bottle on the counter. He hesitated, then nodded. A few minutes later, he returned with a printed document. There's a signature, he said, and a copy of the ID used. I looked at it, then handed it to Emma. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. It was Amanda, clear, undeniable. Thank you, I said. Nothing more. We left. Next stop, the lawyer. That meeting took longer, because this part required precision. Documentation was reviewed, the medical report, the prescription records, the prepared power of attorney forms, my written timeline, everything laid out cleanly, structured, exactly the way it needed to be. This is strong, the lawyer said finally. Very strong. I don't want drama, I replied. You won't get drama, he said. You'll get protection. That was all I wanted. We updated everything. Access revoked. Authority removed. Legal barriers placed exactly where they needed to be. By the time we left, Amanda no longer had any path left. Not quietly. Not legally. Not at all. When I got home, there was a message waiting. From David. Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I should have. Can we talk? I read it once, then placed the phone down. Emma watched me. You're not answering? She asked. Not today, I said. Maybe later? I paused, then nodded slightly. Maybe. Because forgiveness is not immediate, and trust is not restored by a message. The house was quiet again, but not the same quiet as before. This one wasn't watching me. It belonged to me. I walked through each room slowly, not checking, not searching, just existing in my own space, without interference, without adjustment, without someone rewriting small parts of my life and calling it care. I stopped in the kitchen, placed the last of the documents into a folder, and closed it. Finished. Completely. Amanda had wanted control over my memory, my home, my life. But what she misunderstood was simple. You can't erase someone who is still paying attention. And I was paying attention. Every step, every word, every detail she thought was too small to matter. In the end, that's what undid her. Not force, not confrontation, precision. I'll be honest with you. I don't fully agree with everything Helen did, but I understand it. When someone tries to take your life piece by piece, maybe being kind isn't enough. What do you think? And if you stayed till the end, subscribe, like, and tell me your opinion in the comments.